Here we have another set of radios with a unique feature. These radios, probably from the mid-1980s, I would say, guess, have an AM medium wave receiver built into them, unlike the ones we saw in the last video, which had a CB receiver. Now these are branded under the Doshico brand there, but I've seen these under various different names, which we'll look at a little bit later in the video. You can see this one's got a few issues. It has an AM and receiver setting there, so Walkie Talkie or for the AM receiver, and although it says Walkie Talkie, I missed the T out of there. No, a few of them that walk past the house, but there you go. So this one's got a wobbly knob, let's just say, and a few other issues, the usual crackles and problems when you turn it on. There's the transmission frequency of 49.860 megahertz and the AM band frequency on the back there, which is what you would consider a medium wave receiver would be these days. Now, luckily these came this time with battery flaps and battery clips, although on one of them the battery clip was broken, but we replaced that a little bit later on in the video. But overall I really like the style of these. I like the look of them, the unusual PTT button for a start. Now the second radio here was probably more of an issue with the knob there, because the seller had taped the knob in place, and it also had an issue with the antenna. And this one had an antenna that seemed to be poked inside the case, which is normally a bad sign, but it's not as bad as it first looks, which we'll look at a little bit later on. So anyway, these are really quite striking looking radios, not in terms of performance, but none of these 49 meg sets are in that regard. But anyway, I'm sure you'll find this interesting, how we bring these back up to life. And there you go, there's how one looks next to a UV5R. Right, now first thing to do here is a test. And it's got the usual problems there with that, and a little bit of noisy switch. But I was pleased on both radios that the AM receiver seemed to be working good, so that was one thing I didn't have to worry about massively, because it's really a nice feature of this radio, and if nothing else, it makes an unusual looking radio to have on the side, doesn't it? And it does function and works, it seems to work quite well. But again, this had an even worse problem with the knob there, which we definitely sort out later. And you can see some evidence of tampering here on the edge of the bezel here. I wish people would just use a pair of pliers, you know, something simple to lift these bits off. But, you know, you're always going to find that, sadly, on a lot of these old radios. People have been inside, and there's evidence of that on this. So anyway, I thought we would do the usual with these. We'd take them apart completely and give them a quick service, a quick going over. But this one, again, you can tell from the age of the components inside, it's not that old, and it hasn't been that much abused, unlike some radios which we see. Now, the first thing that I noticed was the tab was bent up on the aerial connector here, and the aerial was loose, and that was why, because the screw was missing. Now, if you ever have any metallic parts fall off inside a walkie-talkie, always check the speaker cone, because you may well find they're just stuck to it. This also has that same rotating cam switch, but luckily on this one it wasn't actually worn. So there's no need to replace that. And on the back of it, slightly unusual, these protruding pots. Now on this one, the part of the problem, you can see there that the pot was broken on the side. So of course, quickly, literally 5 minutes this took me to make. This is how great 3D printers are, guys. So if you're doing this, get a 3D printer, learn the basics of the software, and you can fix these things without having to go to any major trouble. And there we go, we've got full support now for the shaft and a nice cover that goes over the top of the potentiometer, stopping any dirt and crud getting in there. So anyway, this problem there with the wobbly knob, these two problems on this radio were quite easily fixed, because if you look, there's a screw down the centre of the shaft there which tightened these ones up. So on this one it wasn't a problem, but it did have this problem with the corrosion, some evidence of corrosion now, and a broken battery clip. But I printed another one of the covers for this one and pushed that over. It's a nice tight fit. Let's have a listen. Again there, the AM reception is very good. I mean, it's a bit noisy. My overhead light actually generates a fair bit of RF noise in that band, unfortunately. But it's only on for when I'm doing the filming. So yeah, so on this one as well, there was an issue. You see this on old transistor radios, actually, the coils coming loose there, a bit of hot glue, and that's in place. And you can see from the field strength meters, you're not going to do much DX with this radio. Again, it's just a child's radio though, so you don't expect too much. Think of it as a transistor radio with a very weak walkie-talkie feature, and you'll be about right. So again, here we are, all repaired. No crackles or hisses or pops. Really loud radio actually, very, very loud. You could turn this fully up, so a good circuit there. And same with the other one, all the switches working properly now, no wobbles. And again, a very functional AM radio, just unfortunately not a very functional walkie-talkie. But then you can say that pretty much, about all of these 49 meg sets really. I think I mentioned you can shout, if you can shout further. There we go. And I thought I'd seen this radio before, and I had. This is the other brand you'll see, the Chiser brand. This is a very similar radio, but it has a CB receiver instead of an AM receiver, which was also on those radios I featured on the channel the other day. So exactly the same manufacturer here, and I did wonder why there was a spare hole in the case on the side there, and that's for the on-off button. They obviously changed that from the dial. And yes, both of these made by the same factory, probably come around at similar times, but this one has probably a more useful feature at the time of an AM receiver. But of course now the medium wave receiver in this one is is the more useful feature, of course. So horses for courses. But I knew I'd seen this style before, and I'd got one in the box. So let's have a listen to it. Firstly off the AM radio. 1 2 1 2, testing 1 2 3 4 5 5 4 3 2 1. AM receive works very, very well. Well, I think you have to agree. It sounds really, really good on AM receive. Anyway, so we didn't do a range test because again these are probably only go about 100 feet. So I hope you've gained something from this, and if you have looked at a set of these, you'll appreciate them for what they are. They really are a radio with a very weak walkie-talkie circuit inside them, but they're nevertheless a unique piece of history, and I really like them again, just primarily for the style of them. So if you have been watching, and there's a TRC 214, thanks. We'll catch you on the next one.